Hey, what's going on, people? Hope you guys are doing good. Today we're going to be talking about the cameras on the Vivo X80 Pro. In case you guys don't know, the Vivo X70 Pro Plus was one of my favorite phones of last year. The camera system was incredible, and I just really enjoyed all the photos that I was able to take on that phone. And with the Vivo X80 Pro, it builds on that camera system, including the Zeiss partnership, which I really feel makes this phone and the Vivo X70 Pro Plus stand out from other phones. We're going to go over several camera tips and tricks for photos in this video. So let's go ahead and get started. I know we're inside. Typically, I would just shoot the video outside, but it's way too bright. It's way too hot. You can't make out anything on the screen, so we got to do this one indoors. The first thing I want to talk about is the Zeiss partnership. So Zeiss actually has a mode built into the camera for more natural looking colors, or just basically giving you Zeiss color science. So if you go into the camera app and then go under photo mode, up at the top you can see Zeiss. If you toggle that on, it's going to give you a natural look. So it's going to mute the colors a little bit. And overall, I find it to be more pleasing than using the AI or just basic AI computational photography. So right here, right off the bat, you can see it. So right now, Zeiss is turned off and AI is turned on. And you can see the colors are more saturated. Now watch this. I'll go ahead and toggle it on, and you can see the colors became more muted. Here's a few examples of exactly what I mean, and this is going to come in handy if you're trying to take a portrait shot and you want the skin tones not to be so red or so vibrant, you just want a natural look. Toggle on Zeiss, and that's definitely going to help your photos look as natural as possible. So not only do you get the Zeiss natural color mode, you also get some really awesome features inside of portrait mode when it comes to Zeiss portrait options. So what you're going to do is you're going to go into portrait mode. Then you're going to tap on this little diamond looking thing over on the right hand side. Tap on that, and that's going to pull up your different styles. Now, of course, Vivo does have their own natural camera, vintage film, French emulation or French film. I can't really make out what that says. French imaging, flash port, party. So those are all regular Vivo filters. But then you have the Zeiss ones. So Zeiss has, and excuse me, but I'm about to butcher these like crazy. We have Biotar, I think that's how you say it, Sonar, Planar, Distagon, and Cinematic. And all you have to do is just go into these, select them, and you're going to get a different type of look to your portrait shots. The bokeh is going to be different. The colors are going to be different. And it just, I don't know, I really like it. It adds a very unique look to your portrait mode shots. They almost look like they came straight out of a mirrorless. Here's a few examples, and these are examples for every single mode. So you have a couple for Biotar, a couple for Sonar, a couple for Planar, a couple for Distagon, and of course, Cinematic. I really like them all. And again, this is one of my favorite camera systems on any phone, and it's specifically because of this. The next thing that I want to talk about is Effects Master. This is really cool. What you're going to do is go into the camera app, go under the regular photo mode, tap on the three lines in the top right, and then you see the option for Effects Master. Tap on that. And this is really cool because it allows you to adjust your exposure and the saturation of the image prior to taking the shot. So if you take your finger and then you slide up, it's going to increase the exposure, and then swiping down decreases the exposure. Then if you swipe from left to right, so if we go to the left, we actually decrease the saturation in the image, as you can see. And then if we swipe to the right, we increase the saturation. And you can really dial in your shot exactly how you want. So if you want a black and white image, but you don't want it completely black and white, so say something like that to where it's really muted, and then you want a darker image, you can just crank down the exposure, or if you want it really bright, you could do something like that. So it's really cool that you could do this prior to taking your shot. So now let's talk about HDR. When it comes to HDR processing, most smartphones are really good because of computational photography and the multi-frame stacking that happens as you take a shot. However, if you want fine-tuned control of HDR, such as if you're doing a real estate shoot and you want to manually control the amount of HDR that's being applied to the photos, then you're going to want to use something called exposure bracketing, which this smartphone comes with. So what you're going to do is go into the camera app, go under Pro mode, tap on the three lines in the top right, and then select bracketing, which is right here in the middle. You can adjust your bracketing limits, so you could take 3 shots, 5 shots, or 7 shots, and then you can adjust your EV interval from 0.3, 0.5 to 1. So I'm gonna go ahead and select 0.5, we'll do 5 shots, and I'll go ahead and take the photo. And you can see it's capturing 5 shots. So if I go into my gallery, there's 1, it's overexposed, there's another slightly less exposed or less overexposed, and then another that's less overexposed, another that's less overexposed, and then finally one that's pretty underexposed minus the window lighting. And then you're gonna take all of these photos and then you're going to put them in your photo editor on your computer, and then you're going to stitch all the frames together and adjust your HDR. Like I said, this isn't for everybody, but if you're doing real estate shoots, then you probably have a lot of experience doing this anyways, and this is how you're gonna get the best HDR image when it comes to manually processing that photo. The Vivo X80 Pro has a pretty good macro mode. It doesn't get as close as the Galaxy S22 Ultra or the iPhone 13 Pro, but the image itself looks really clean. So what you're gonna do is go into the camera, go under the photo mode, and then just get your phone really close and you'll see it automatically click on. And it does a pretty good job. So this is using the auto macro mode or the auto super macro mode. So I'm gonna go ahead and snap this shot. And you can see it looks pretty good. However, I've noticed that if you're using the macro mode in auto, sometimes it could be a little wonky and it glitches a little bit. So you might want to manually control this. So go up top, tap on the little flower, and then just tap on. Now you're automatically in the macro mode. Now, if you bring it close, you can see it's not switching or anything like that. So I can get really close and then snap the shot. And I found that if I manually control the macro mode, I can get a little bit closer. The next tip or trick that I have for you is stabilization. We talk about stabilization a lot in video mode, which I do have a separate video for that. But the stabilization in photo mode on the Vivo X80 Pro is out of this world. Like, it literally freezes your subject no matter how much you're bumping around. It works really good. But there's another feature that pairs with this stabilization to allow you to hold your phone as still as possible. It just helps out with that. Go up in the top right corner, tap on the three little dots, and then tap on stabilization. You'll see this little circle appear, and if I move the phone, you can see it's basically the gimbal doing its thing. Like, it's really, really cool. So if I go like down really fast, the circle kind of like flattens out, and if I go up, you can see it kind of flattens out up top. If I go right, it turns to the right. I don't know, it's really neat. Let me give you an example of just how good the stabilization works. So let's just say I'm on like a dirt road or something. Like, I know I'm in the house, this is kind of like far-fetched, but we're gonna have to use our imagination on this one. I'm on a dirt road and I'm bouncing. This kind of looks really weird, but I'm bouncing and I wanna get a picture of my dog. So watch this. My phone is bouncing up and down. I'm gonna go ahead and snap the shot and look at how clear that image is. I almost forgot. Before we move on from stabilization, there's one more feature I want to talk about. So if we go into the main settings inside the camera app, so tap on the three lines in the top right, tap on settings, you have micro gimbal calibration. So if you notice that your stabilization is a little wonky, maybe the gimbal, the internal gimbal is messing up because the Vivo X80 Pro and the X70 Pro Plus do have internal gimbals, you can calibrate it. So just tap on that. And then right now it's calibrating. You can see the camera is moving itself around. Calibration is complete, and now it should be a little bit more stable, although I really didn't have any issues to begin with. But if you notice that it is a little wonky, you can just go ahead and calibrate it and it should fix any issues. The autofocus on the Vivo X80 Pro is really good. So if I put my hand in front of the camera and then move it around, you can see it does a pretty good job at keeping my hand in focus. But if you want to extend the capabilities of this autofocusing system, there is something called motion autofocus. To get to it, tap on the three little lines in the top right, go under motion autofocus, and then once you're inside of here, you have autofocus tracking, which basically just gives you the ability to spot focus. So you can tap just like so, and it will lock if you touch and hold. So it's basically just manual focusing by tapping. But if you go under motion autofocus and then also enable manual focus tracking, well, now you can touch your subject and then double tap, and then now it is tracking in real time. So no matter where I move my hand, it is going to continuously track my hand. Even if I leave the frame and then come back on, it's gonna pick up from where it left off. So my hand's off the frame, come back in, look at that. It works like a boss. The Vivo X80 Pro has a really good night mode, so let's go ahead and dive into that and go over a few things. The first thing I want to cover is the night mode panorama feature, which is up here at the top. So once you're inside of night mode, select the little icon that has like a picture and then two lines next to it, and then that enables panorama night mode, and it's incredible. Here's an example of a couple panorama night mode shots that I took, And I gotta say, they look really, really good. I was blown away by this feature. Another thing that I wanna talk about are the filters inside of night mode. So as I showed you, Vivo does have their own special filters, but if you go under night mode, there are some unique ones specific to this mode. So if you tap on the little triangle or diamond thing on the right-hand side and pull up the filters, you have black and golden, cyberpunk, dreamy spotlight, texture black and white, blue ice, green and orange, dark red, blue orange, and silver orange. Some of these filters look really good depending on what you're trying to capture. If like you're in a city, cyberpunk adds a really cool look. And of course you can dial back the filter with this slider until you get it to where you want. So if you're doing something for social media, this is a good way to spice it up before you take your shot if you don't want to do any editing or anything like that. So it's just something that's really nice that you should look into when using night mode. Staying inside of night mode, another thing that I want to cover is tripod detection. So if you have your phone on a tripod, it will automatically detect it and then give you a really long exposure, giving you a crystal clear night mode shot, which is awesome. If you want to disable this, just tap the little tripod symbol in the top left and it will turn off tripod detection. Honestly, I just recommend leaving it on because it does a great job at recognizing a tripod on its own. But if you notice there's any glitches or anything like that, you can toggle it off. The next thing that I want to talk about is the long exposure feature. So if you want to do a long exposure of like traffic or other lights, just toggle on the little symbol that has like a box and some lines next or inside of it. Just toggle that on, you'll see long exposure pop up, and then it gives you a bunch of different choices, including flow of traffic, night graffiti, waterfalls, mysterious mist, fireworks, and star trails. So it's really nice that they have these presets dialed in for you, and you can see the seconds over here on the bottom right, so it lets you know exactly how long that long exposure is going to occur. And if you're doing a lot of these, I do recommend using a tripod. You're gonna get the best results, or at least have your phone propped up to where you're not touching it to take out any motion. But it's really neat, and you can capture some really awesome shots using these little presets. The other thing I wanna talk about is supermoon. So if we tap on the little moon icon and then tap on supermoon, it gives you like a moon shot similar to the Galaxy S22 Ultra. It's not as zoomed in because it doesn't have 100 times zoom, but it does blow up the moon and it looks really good. So if we go back into the little menu with the moon up here, we also have an astrophotography mode. So this is going to capture a long exposure of the stars, and then it's going to enhance the sky to really bring out those stars. Here's a couple examples of what I mean, and you can see the stars look pretty good. And I gotta say, like by the naked eye or what I was seeing myself, there wasn't that many stars in the sky, so it definitely brings out some of those features and details, and I think it looks pretty cool. So let's go ahead and bounce out of night mode and then go under more. Then we're gonna jump into double exposure. This is the next thing I wanna talk about. Now, chances are, if you open it up for the first time, you're greeted with a bunch of flowers, but don't worry, we can switch this up by tapping on the little box in the top left. We can either choose from multiple exposure, front and rear exposure, which is going to capture a photo from the front camera and the back camera, or we could do two exposures, which allows you to use the rear cameras to capture one photo and then another photo. The idea behind this is to capture two shots at two different exposures, and then it blends those shots together to give you a really creative shot. I suck at this. Here's some examples of what I've done, and you can see I am not very good at it, but nonetheless, like if you're really creative and you know how to take advantage of this, you can get some really interesting shots. The next feature that I want to talk about is inside of portrait mode. So let's go ahead and bounce back into there. The feature is called portrait framing, and it's great for people that are just getting started in photography and know nothing about framing. So we're going to tap on the three lines in the top right. We're going to go under settings, scroll all the way down until you see portrait framing, and then toggle that on. What that's going to do is give you some cues and guidelines on how to frame your shot whenever you're capturing a portrait mode shot of a person. It has to have a face in the frame, and it works really well. Here's a quick look at what it looks like. Once you line everything up, it will go ahead and start a countdown and automatically take the photo for you. I've been using portrait framing for all of the portrait mode shots that I've captured so far, and I gotta say the guides are on point, and it actually does a great job at lining everything up for you. So I definitely recommend using it if you're not good at framing or if you want to get more comfortable with framing. Staying inside of portrait mode, there's a couple other things that I wanna go over, and they have to do with beauty mode. Now, typically I would advise not using beauty mode, but these are really unique features and I think they could be really useful. So over on the right hand side, you have like a circle with a person with long hair and like a little star. If we tap on that, it's gonna pull up beauty mode. Typically, this is the beauty things that I don't recommend using, like buffing, skin tone, whitening, things like that. But next to beauty, there's posture. If you tap on that, it gives you framing ideas for taking portraits. So if you're taking a picture of, say, a couple of your friends, you can tap on it and you can see it gives you an outline of how they should pose. Or if you go to downtown, you have some options of like city posing, you have stylish, sport, travel. Like there's a lot of different posing ideas in here that could really help you out if you're trying to capture some, you know, Instagram shots or more lifestyle shots. They even have different selfie poses that you can do for females, for males. I don't know. I think it's really neat and I've never seen this on any other phone. Let me know in the comment section if you've seen this before outside of Vivo smartphones and what you think about it. I think this is like really useful. The last thing that I want to talk about inside of portrait mode, or more specific beauty mode, is not found in the typical beauty mode settings. Instead, we have to go into the main settings. So let's go ahead and dive into there. Scroll all the way down and you see the option to remove moles. As long as beauty mode is turned on and this is enabled, it will literally remove moles from photos. And I'm not talking about like the animal mole. I'm talking about like moles on people's faces. It's kind of crazy. So the last thing that I want to talk about is Pro mode. Now, by now, most phones have a Pro mode built into them, unless of course we're talking about the iPhone, which, come on Apple. But in terms of Android, most Android phones do have a Pro mode, and you could do a lot of things inside of here. You could adjust the exposure compensation, the ISO, shutter speed, white balance, your autofocus, so you could switch it to manual focus. You also have your metering modes. You have different aspect ratios and grid lines and things like that that you can do. You have your Zeiss colors. But the thing that I want to focus on is something called Super RAW. So right next to Zeiss, you can see RAW and it has a line through it. That just means that RAW is disabled. If you tap on it, you can turn on RAW, which gives you the ultimate flexibility when it comes to editing photos. However, we could take that a step further by enabling Super RAW. So Super RAW gives you all the benefits of a regular RAW image. However, it also gives you some computational photography to go along with that. So it kind of gives you a great looking image right out of the camera that you don't have to do a lot to, minus like some sharpening and things like that. But overall, Super RAW just gives you a lot more information to play with, and I definitely appreciate it. So here's a couple examples of RAW versus Super RAW. Let me know what you think. So there you guys go. That was 15 plus camera tips and tricks for the Vivo X80 Pro, specifically for photography. Stay tuned for one on video, because that will be coming up next. Like I said, I really love this camera system. It's one of my favorite camera systems. In fact, it might be my favorite camera system for photos so far. I just love the way the images come off of this camera, and it just looks great. Plus, the phone itself is really good, so stay tuned for my full review on this, as well as the video tips and tricks. Comment down below and let me know what you think of this camera system. Like I said, it's really underrated. And if there's any comparisons that you want to see me do with this, also comment down below and let me know those. I love hearing from you guys. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. Subscribe for more videos just like this. And hopefully the next video will be back outside, as long as it's not too hot and too bright. And yeah, I'll see you beautiful people in the next one.